Hello and welcome to the show. For today's Nurburgring challenge, I've got the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1, a car that I really do quite like. It's a modern day muscle car, but it actually drives phenomenally well. The challenge though is to try and get this car around the Nürburgring as quickly as it did in real life. The target time is a 7 minutes 41.2. That is a very quick time. That is an incredibly quick time for this car around the ring, and I've got to try and beat it. It's a pretty tall order, I will be honest, getting this around the track that fast. To kind of put that into perspective, the Ferrari 360 challenge that is into A class at a 7 minutes 30. This has got to go not that far off with a car that's, let's face it, not quite as quick as a 360 challenge. It's a very tall order to get the Camaro around, but I was going to give it a go. Now, when I looked up the lap time, it didn't say that the car ran on any super special sort of barely road legal racing tyres, so I've kept the vehicle completely standard for this. Yeah, I don't know. I'm presuming that is the case. That's what I've run with this anyway. So yeah, we are driving a completely stock Camaro. As I said many times before, this car is very, very good to drive for what it is. It's really, it's sort of surprising. Every time I drive this car, it surprises me just how good it is. For example, we're turning in here. It's about 110, 112 miles an hour as we exit the corner. Tiny little twitch from the Camaro. Otherwise, it stays planted through that entire corner. This is a, what was it, 580 horsepower muscle car. And the back end of this car stays planted better than a McLaren P1 up towards this next corner. I think it's about 130 to 135. Turn in, boot it, and again, the car, it gets a little bit of a slide on. Just at the exit of that corner, it gets a small bit of a slide on. But considering what this car is, the amount of grip it has is really quite ridiculous. Again, we're flat out all the way down here. No, it's not as fast accelerating as a P1, but it's still pretty damn impressive as we get flat out through this, or at the bottom of the hill, a little bit of a brake and a downshift at the top. You can carry excellent corner speed with this car. It really is surprising. The first few times it still surprises me just how much corner speed you can carry in this, and it's good on traction as well. Again, it's still 580 horsepower muscle car, and it's really quite an easy car to drive in many respects. Now, the slight downside is that I drove this fairly shortly after driving a McLaren P1. There is quite a difference between the two, I'll be honest. While this is a very good car to drive, it is fairly heavy for Forza standards. It is, I think it's about £4,000. Now, compared to sort of normal, boring, everyday cars, that might not be particularly heavy. But in Forza, we spend most of our time driving lightweight, stripped-out sports cars and supercars. £4,000 is pretty heavy. And I'll be honest, going between a P1 and going between this, you notice the weight. It does feel a lot heavier, perhaps a little less responsive at times, but I am comparing that to a very, very good hypercar in effect. So yes, it does feel a little bit on the heavy side. The brakes are good, again, considering the car's weight. The brakes are pretty damn good, but of course, it felt like they weren't as good having just been driving a P1. But up until this point, there was really nothing to criticise about the car. Curbs were not too much of a problem. I don't actually think I hit... Oh, you can see that there's a slight scrape on the front of my car. On the warm-up lap, I scraped the curb at the carousel. I was a little bit too low in the carousel, and that's where the scrape on that one came from. I didn't have any curves because I didn't hit any curves with this car, basically. This car is such a good vehicle. I can position it absolutely where I want it, almost 100% of the time. It really is that good of a car. I don't think I ever had any altercations with a curb at all on this lap. Now, this next bit is a little bit scary in the Camaro. I said it has very good rear end grip, and it does. However, once we get to the really high speeds, I just had to lift off through that first bit, just a tiny lift up on turning, just to make sure the car was settled. It's flat out through this next bit, yeah, without any problems. there is a very, very tiny bit of oversteer when you're really pushing this car to the absolute limits, which is not surprising. I mean, as far as a rear wing goes, it's just a tiny little bit of like a spoiler on the back, not a huge proper thing producing downforce. The scariest moment of the entire lap was that one there, just gone. I put a wheel on the dirt a fraction and was fighting to get the car back, and there was just a sudden kick as I was coming under braking into the hairpin. Yeah, that could have gone really wrong. I kind of got away with it a little bit on that one. I was terrified when I did that for the split second, thinking that was going to end up in a wall somewhere, but managed to gather it all up. The other impressive thing about the Camaro is if you do get things wrong, if you do get this car sideways, it's incredibly easy to control. You won't see it on this lap, but when I was doing the practice laps and when I was driving it elsewhere, often you'll find cars, you slide them, and they'll get twitchy on you, and then they'll throw you in a wall. I drive everything with no assist, simulation steering, and all of that. But this car is completely different. If you slide this car around, it just doesn't really care. It'll do exactly what you want it to. It won't be twitchy once it starts sliding. Perhaps part of that is to do with the fact that it is a little bit heavier, a little bit more stable. But it's a remarkably easy car to drive, this. It has no right to be easy to drive, it's a huge muscle car. But it is, it really is. Through this bit we're starting to get to the little bit tighter, the little bit twistier, more complex corners on the track. The Camaro, it certainly doesn't struggle through here. The brakes caught me out a couple of times on this, just out braking myself. Again, I think that's largely to do with I've gone from a P1 to this, more than at fault with this car, as it is pretty damn remarkable what it can do. The corners coming up, it does get a little bit bumpy down here, where we see the car changing from side to side. Again, the Camaro just doesn't quite have the downforce I would like. It's pretty damn good, but there's a little bit of a lift as we come through this bit, and down here it is quite scary. I think it was flat out through there, but on a few practice runs I had some big slides going in. Just the change of direction from side to side can just get a little bit too much for the Camaro. But still, considering what this is, it does incredibly well as we're coming now towards the final bit of the track. Yeah, I really liked driving this car around here. It wasn't like the McLaren P1 was mightily scarily fast and very easy to make huge mistakes with this. With the Camaro, the mistakes were often very small mistakes, so I might outbrake myself a little bit into a corner, run a small bit wide, but on the whole it wasn't hard sort of learning this track with this car. It really wasn't. There was very, very few sort of smack the wall incidences. I had a few moments on the grass here and there, but I don't think there was ever a really big crash with the Camaro. It's just an easy car to drive. Down the straight, pretty good straight line speed. It's getting up towards 180 miles an hour as we come to take this corner. I get fairly easily flat outs through here for the Camaro. We run down the hill. This next bit is scary but incredibly fast. It's about 170 through the first part, 150 through the second, and then jump on the brakes and make sure you get it stopped for this next bit. That was another place that it was easy to outbrake yourself there and get carried away with the speed of the car. And then it's just around the final corner and a run to the line for the Chevrolet. It was a pretty damn good lap, that one. I don't think I could have got very much more out of it, apart from that one moment under braking where I put a wheel on the grass and got a little bit of a slide on the exit. I don't think I could have got any more out of that car. And you can tell I was happy with the lap, as there's a little bit of some celebratory donuts. Unfortunately, the track is not really wide enough at this point. That I was having trouble fitting the car onto the bit of track and a little bit too close to the camera. But yeah, I was really pretty damn chuffed with that lap. The target time to beat was a 7:41.2. I managed to do a 7:39.4. I beat it, but only just. That is a really, really tough time to beat. I did a number of 7:42s. I did a 7:41.9 at one point. It is really tough to get that lap time with this car. As I said, I reckon I could probably just about get it into the 38s. If I hadn't had that mistake, a little bit of a slide into one of the corners there, I might have just got into the 38s, but I can't get much more out of it than I did on that run. That was about as fast as I can do. The Camaro was very, very good. As I said, I had loads of consistent similar lap times from it. It's a really nice car to drive, primarily because it's so consistent through all of the corners. You turn into a corner, I know exactly what to expect from this car, whereas I don't with the likes of the P1. Yeah, it's really quite a good car. If you haven't driven it, go drive the Camaro. It will amaze you just how much grip there is. Excellent value for money. And it got around the Nürburgring in 7:39. And people say American cars can't go around corners. Well, this is proof that they can. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to put the onboard footage of this lap at the end in a minute when I finish talking. So if you want to watch the onboard footage, you can. I'm not going to commentate over it because commentating over onboard footage is useless because you can see not very much. So if you want to watch the onboard footage, it is going to be there. If you don't, then you can end this video and go watch other stuff of ours or whatever. So yeah, goodbye everybody.